Hey, and welcome to another episode. I don't know what's going on with the background. I haven't got the light. Oh, it's up at this one. No. Oh, Jesus. Nope. Just have me orange. That's fine with the overhead light. So I broke Grok again. I don't know what is going on. So I've been over the past few days, I've been kind of having little chit chats to kind of gather information and collate stuff. And then, I was doing the doing all the clothes folding, and while folding the clothes, I was watching Trump's UN speech. And as I was watching, I was kind of like leaving little teeny tiny voice notes in notepad, notebook, the purple OneNote. There we go, OneNote. And then so I was like, right, okay. So half an hour ago, I posted my kind of voice notes, and I was like, right, can you just cross-reference this to make sure that I haven't kind of and make it make sense, so that I can kind of talk about it. And in half an hour, Grok's written like 8 sentences. Like, I don't know what it's doing. It's literally like it's just supposed to be like structuring the information that I already gave it. So that's quite frustrating. However, um, I don't know. So it hasn't organized. I haven't managed to get it to organize all the conversations that we've had over the last many hours. I've literally shut everything on my computer, and it's just having like the world's biggest hissy fit. And now it's just deleted all the information. It's really upsetting. Anyway, what we're going to talk about this week, right? Well, I'm going to have to open up Telegram because that's where I posted what we're talking about as well. So we're only going to talk about 2 things today, because I wanted to kind of go into the Wanker Card and Trump's kind of UN speech in quite a bit of detail. And if I'm not watching Grok, he stops talking. That's so, like, I don't even understand what that's about. Actually, you shouldn't have to watch it. And then we're going to go into productivity guilt and how we can avoid productivity guilt, which I know I get lots of productivity guilt. So this is going to be extremely helpful for me. Okay, so first up, we're going to kind of talk about the Wanker Card. And obviously, I mean the digital ID. And it's important we kind of go back in history first, right? And so we all know, you pull who is it? Starmer's mask, that kind of Scooby-Doo style, pull Starmer's mask away, and then you've got Tony Blair underneath. And obviously we kind of did a little bit of a dive into Tony Blair and his links with Mandelson a couple of episodes ago, talking about the fact that the Labour, the head of the Labour Party, and he must have been, the PM. Oh no, maybe not. Head of the Labour Party, had a heart attack, and they did a backroom deal with Gordon Brown that Tony Blair would be the leader. And so there's already lots of dodgy stuff. And I'm not going to talk about Fabians because everybody's talking about the Fabians now, and it's just why now, right? So we were talking about it years ago. So everybody's talking about it now, but they're not kind of mentioning it's all of them. Right, just specifically it's such an obvious. We are going through another coup, right? Another media-led backroom deal coup. And like I said, Andy Burnham is the person they're pushing. So we will have Mafia Don. I mean, I don't know whether he thinks he's a Mafia Don, right? So pull Starmer's head back, and you get Tony Blair. This is really stressing me out because I can't even go up to grab my notes and my conversation. Oh, I don't know what he's fucking doing. Right, let me just go stop talking about that shit. Just stop. Hold on. Let me just stop Grok doing whatever it's trying to do. Now what just happened? Oh, fuck's sake. I just lost everything. We were talking about the Wanker Card. Okay, well, we'll kind of start with a little funny story. So Matt came home from work on whichever day it was, and he's like, "Oh my god, as of tomorrow, there's going to be like, we'll have to have digital ID to work." And I was like, "It doesn't work that fast, babe. Don't worry about it. Nothing happens that fast." So we don't need to panic, okay? So it won't be implemented until 2029 if it kind of goes full tilt, and full pelt. Um, is it I don't know what it's doing. Fuck's sake, like, my entire computer's just frozen. There's literally only this window open and Grok's open. Like, that's it. Everything else is closed, and everything's just having a hissy fit. Like, and it only started when I put the Trump stuff in, right? It's been fine talking about loads of other stuff. The minute I kind of mentioned Trump's speech, Grok had a hissy fit. And my computer's just not working. Oh, come on, I want to go to the information that I've already and I used to put my notes in OneNote, and then one week I came to it and then all my notes had been deleted. So that wasn't helpful. Like, everything I try to do, it just doesn't seem to work. It just Technology hates me. Right. Come on, let me go and see what I wrote, please. What are you doing? Okay, right now I can scroll up. Okay, anyway, so it's not gonna come until 2029, but actually, what I wanted to do is I wanted to kind of revisit, where it all kinda came from, because it's important to know that this isn't something that's brand new, right? It didn't just come out of nowhere, and it's been cleverly timed multiple times already, and we're just seeing it again. So when obviously Matt came home and like, "Oh my god," and I was just like, "Babe, oh no, 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 no." Oh fuck! It keeps freezing. It's really upsetting me, and I'm really sorry. Like, I actually can't read any of it. I can't. I have to just keep fucking refreshing. Fast grok my arse. Like, I don't understand what he's doing. This is making me really sad, and I do really apologise. Hate Chris. Yeah, I don't hate me either. Man, you can hate Marmite as much as you want. I'm hating Grok right now. Because every time I refresh, I go all the way back to fucking stuff that's not helpful. Okay. So, right, here we go. Timeline. Okay, so timeline and key players in digital IDs, because there's a lot of misinformation rolling around, and I do need the notes because otherwise I forget people's names. So, okay, so pre-2000s, right? So they were already investigating a national ID, and I hadn't realized this, but they were already doing it like 1980s, 1990s, and obviously that aligns with the first real kind of cabal push for us to be completely controlled. And we see the same pattern. So the same pattern of events. We have a pandemic of some kind of proportion. Then we have like terrorist stuff. And so what was going on in the 80s, where we had AIDS, and we had we were still kind of in the middle of the Cold War. So we had all of that stuff was going on that, you know, obviously we had spies, you could be a red. And so it's always kind of themed and tied into the same kind of, you must do XYZ. Like, this is like literally the playbook, right? You have a disease, you have a national panic, then you have you know, terrorist attack, and then you have to implement lots of stuff. So the UK's always said no. We keep saying no, and they just keep doing it. So they have to kind of let the dust settle and then create another reason for it to happen. So pre-2080s and 90s, it was kind of emerging with regards to fraud and security. So the first attempt was fraud and stopping fraud. So what else was going on in the 80s? We had all the kind of miners' strikes. There was I was born in the 80s, so you know, I was like a baby for a lot of it. So I wasn't here for some of it, and then I was a baby for a lot of it. But I remember we had blackouts, and so we had all the miners' strikes, and obviously they tried to bring down the government. There was lots of so they went after. So the first attempt was tying it to fraud and security, and that didn't work, right? So then they have to kind of let the dust settle, and then they come back. So in 1995, the Michael Howard, so Conservative Home Office, proposed voluntary ID cards to address illegal immigration and crime, right? So back in 1995, they were doing like the illegal immigration thing. And back then, it was not like tens of thousands of people in any way, shape, or form. So people kind of said, fuck you back then, and it was shelved and ignored. And then we had the very helpful 9/11, right? And I say very helpful, purposeful, in order to kind of like mass surveillance. So on the back of 9/11, Tony Blair revives the ID. Right. And I hadn't realized it was after 9/11. But again, you know, I wasn't particularly involved in like what was going on in the wider world 25 years ago. Still, I mean, I was a teen. So they said that, so this time it was framed as combating terrorism and identity fraud, right? So I don't know why identity fraud was I don't understand. So I don't understand how they think a digital card is the thing that's going to stop identity fraud, because it's so much easier to fake a digital ID than a physical one. Like it must be, because it's just all on a computer, and especially with AI now, right? So you could make, like, I can make an AI Katie, and I can just maybe change bits, like change the hair color, change the eye color, and that's a completely new person. Like you don't even actually have to have a photo of anybody anymore. You can just like make shit up, and then if you're looking kind of similar, nobody's gonna know. Anyway, so it was terrorism, and so that was David Blunkett, and he proposed compulsory national ID card linked to a national identity register, which would also include biometric data such as fingerprints, iris scans, and facial recognition. So they've been trying to get our faces, fingerprints, eyes, the lot since like for 25 years. And obviously they've been taking it unlawfully through the CCTV cameras, right? And they've been taking it unlawfully when they, you know, take your blood at the doctors and all of that sort of stuff. But they were trying to get us back then. So then in 2004, they introduced the Identity Cards Bill. It initially they did it compulsory, but everybody kicked off. So they made it voluntary. Finally, 2006. So this is like 5 years to go from major terrorist incident to actually getting the law passed. And it was authorizing non-compulsory biometric ID cards, and they made you pay for it, right? So it cost you 30 quid, and allowed passport-free EU travel. I mean, like you still have to show the card, right? So you still have to present something. Like what's the difference between like the digital ID card and your passport? And anyway, the illegals aren't providing any kind of ID at all. So how it's only law-abiding citizens who are using these forms of identification. The criminals and the illegals aren't going to. The same as the law-abiding citizens don't have the weapons, right? We're not the people wandering around with machetes. We're not the people wandering around with guns and all of those things. So it's any kind of surveillance method. Anybody who's a criminal, they will not be using it. Right? They will circumvent using it. And if they're really that bothered about illegals working, then they would just rock up to the hotels and confiscate all the delivery bikes, right? They would rock up to the Just Eat, like to all the takeaway places, and they would just ask people on the spot, show me your national insurance number, give us your national insurance number. Where's your pay slip? Right? And you just shut the fuck, like that's all you have to do. You just then shut the takeaway down. That's it. Like instantly. Like a digital ID is not going to do anything different. It's ludicrous. So then in 2009, they launched the first ID cards at Pancras International. So it's taken almost 10 years to go from 9/11 happening to 2009. We get the first ID cards. 15,000 people issued them, right? That was it. And it cost us between 5 and 20 billion. So that is one giant money laundering scheme right there. Because you tell me how it cost almost potentially 20 billion pounds to issue 15,000 plastic cards on and put the information on a fucking spreadsheet, because that's probably the safety and intelligence of the database. It is just that will be it. It's just an intuitive spreadsheet. Like that's all databases are, right? Is you just have a front facing thing that people see slightly different, but on the back end it's just a fucking spreadsheet. So there's been almost 20 billion pounds on making a spreadsheet for 15,000 cards. Like, I mean, I'd have done it, but like I don't know, give me 1 million and I'd have done it for you. Like, it's not. It's like pathetic, like so mind-boggling. More mind-boggling because people don't seem to realize like this is. I mean, I didn't realize this was the third iteration. I knew it was like they've been relentlessly trying to do it since 2019. They first started doing different consultations about ID, trying to come at it from different way rounds. I've had my eye on it. So I've seen like every year since 2019 there's been a consultation on digital IDs, just different ways, right? And obviously the one that we did in August was specifically about it being national security and it being about the illegals. All the times before that they haven't done it, right? So I knew it was coming. And coming hard. Didn't quite expect it to come like to the announcement 2 weeks after the consultation, when the consultation information is not due until 2026. So that's dodgy IF. But they, I mean, they can just ignore consultations. The same as they ignore the petitions, right? They have to do it, but they don't have to pay attention to it. The same as they can ignore the Human Rights Act, right? They literally just have to say, "Oh yeah, well, it's not compatible with the Human Rights Act, so we're doing it anyway," right? That's quite literally the law. They have to just say why it's not compatible. Like they don't have to make it compatible, which is again ludicrous. Anyway, so 5 to 20 billion to do 15 plastic cards in a spreadsheet. And then the Conservative Lib Dem coalition scrapped it. And interestingly, it was Theresa May who called it intrusive and made it a surveillance state. And then she was also responsible for the Home Office when 10,000 children went missing and they think they accidentally gave them to human traffickers, right? So I mean, one would argue that maybe maybe it would have been useful for those kids. No, because it's never going to be used for that, right? So then in 2010 to 2024, we've had quiet development. So what they did, so the UK, so the Conservatives, so this is only a Labour government can bring this in, right? The Conservatives, their concept is freedom, right? Less red tape, less government overreach. That's what this, that's why most people, well, a lot more people align with the Conservative Party. They don't want the government deciding what they're doing every single day. So in order to kind of push those ideals, they had to get rid of it. So they just did it via the back door. So we've had mission creep for the last 10 years. So we had everything's being pushed to digital without an ID card. So we've had the gov.uk and then gov.uk verify. So you have to kind of, and if you're on benefit, you have to do your digital journal. You have to log the hours that you're doing. You're kind of like on the internet searching, and you have to, if you've got any issues, so you kind of like have to talk to the DWP through your journal, your electronic journal. We've had the NHS all going digital, which has been billions wasted, and it doesn't work, and they don't talk to each other, and then they get hacked. Right. So we had very recent. So if you're wondering why there's a blood shortage, that was due to a cyber attack. There was a cyber attack and it just fucked everything up. And so there's a blood shortage. Then 2017 to 2020, rising immigration concerns after Brexit, right? So this is how it's all staged, right? The point of Brexit was to stop immigration. So why would people be more concerned with immigration rising after you've literally just voted to stop it? Like, it doesn't make any sense. So the Home Office starts to look at digital immigration status for EU citizens, requiring e-visas via smartphone apps, but they don't mention ID cards, right? Because they're just not going to do it. And so what we also then see at the same time is we see smartphones. All of a sudden, smartphones can take fingerprints. They can use your face. I mean, anybody who uses a fingerprint or their face to unlock their phone is a retard. Like, legit special needs person. And you probably aren't watching all the like the crime dramas, right? So I mean, back when people were using passwords, your phones, like, it was very difficult to get into somebody's phone. Now you just flash it at their face. But also you're then storing your face and your fingerprint in your phone. Like, people haven't realized they already have digital ID. It's just their phone. Like, they're using their emails, their social media accounts to log into everything. The only thing people haven't done is got a government card, but they forget the government's propping up all of the other institutions and they're all kind of like funding each other, and it's all the same people owning everything anyway. So if you have a Facebook account, the CIA like, and the NSA, they have all your information, and then so does Five Eyes, and then so does like, so the information is all they already have all this information, right? We have to kind of really understand this concept, right? We already have digital ID. We just don't have the card, right? We just don't have the physical card that you need for your digital ID, right? Which is just backwards. But it's already there. It's already there. It's already stored. It's already like your bank's online. Your like it just everything's on your phone already. People who pay using their mobile, I don't pay using my mobile phone. I use my card and I put my pin in. And most of the time I try and use cash, but people the vast majority of people are already doing it without even realizing, right? There's, oh my god, I can't have the card, and then they go and freaking use their mobile phone to pay and use them stare at the mobile phone to open, and you just like people aren't turning their brains on for this. So we then obviously saw the softly introduction through the COVID passports, right? And that's when we saw the return of Tony Blair. And let's not forget, Nigel Farage was pushing Tony Blair being the passport king, as in being the COVID passport. Like that was Farage. So let's be careful, because now we've got Farage is going to win a landslide. So it's one freaking globalist controlled wanker to another one. And so 2020, 2023, we had the vaccine passports, which again, we pushed back on and said, no, thanks, right? And what that proves, that this is what we need to hold on to, is what that proves is we do still hold the power. Because if we choose not to consent and we just ignore their bullshit and just say, I don't consent to that shit, I'm not doing it, the UK government will pass legislation, right? That's their job. But then we have the free will choice to reject that by not consenting. So then the government has to use their police force, which is supposed to be a police service. Then they have to use their police force, right? And then the police have to decide that they're going to arrest you. And then you get to go to court. And then you, as the person, as the free person, you dictate whether that actually becomes law or not, because you can be found not guilty, or the jury can they can decide to just disregard it, right? But they create the legislation. They use the police to dictate, who they're going to arrest, who they're not going to arrest. But then you get the opportunity to be like, but I don't consent to it because it's just bullshit against all these laws that we already have. I'm not doing it. And anybody who fought the COVID stuff in the courts, they won. Anybody who refused to pay the fines, they won. And then they had to retract 75,000 fines, right? Which were issued unlawfully, not illegally, unlawfully, because they found when it was reviewed, they were like, none of this is lawful. You can't do this. This was just guidance. It's not a crime to ignore guidance. It wasn't a law. Anybody who was picked up by the police over Southport, there was 1,000 people who were picked up. 400 went to prison, 600 didn't. What was the difference? 400 pled guilty, 600 said not guilty. So you just say not guilty. I'm not consent. Look at the Sharia courts. They choose not to consent to the UK laws, and it's fine, right? If it wasn't fine, there wouldn't be men with multiple wives in the UK. There wouldn't be all the other dodgy shit that happens that's actually, it's okay to beat your wife. It's not okay in UK law to do that, but it's okay under Sharia law, right? So we've got they set precedents. This is what you like. People just look at the Sharia courts and be like, oh my God, like it's two-tier. And we're like, yeah, okay, but they just set precedents there. So we can use that. And they haven't made it law, right? Because they're not getting arrested. This is how they make sure they're not they kind of are stupid, but they do have some level of intelligence that there are some things that they just will not take to court. And it's not because there's two-tier Britain. It's because if it goes to court, then there's lawful precedent set. Right? And they can't have lawful precedents because then we can use it too. But British people tend to be law abiding. So it's more for the people who are pleading guilty. So digital ID was not in their manifesto. So this is not something that they promised. So some of the other shit they've done was in their manifesto, and that's more for me and everybody else who just didn't look, right? We didn't look. And I knew they were going to win, so I should have, right? I just guessed. Oh, and obviously they're saying they're not nationalizing the rails train services, but they've now going to put more in public ownership, right? Did everybody spot that more train services are going to go into public ownership? Remember the 15-minute cities? We got your digital ID. You're not going to be allowed to go outside your 15 minutes. You can't go on the trains because you'll need to present your ID, and you've already been out. You've already traveled, right? You're not allowed. And we've got ANPR cameras, right, everywhere on the roads. We've got CCTV everywhere. Like, we're already in a fucking surveillance prison. So in 2024, Tony Blair and his Tony Blair Institute, the TBI, starts to say, oh, well, you need digital ID to control immigration. Now, considering Tony Blair's the reason we're in this complete fucking shit show with the laws he changed, one could argue that it was really fucking obvious this was going to be the result of the laws that him and Starmer changed and started the ball rolling, right? So it's not a surprise we are where we are. So he's saying that I don't know how it's going to improve public services. So supposedly the digital ID are they going to stop the immigration? I don't know how, right? Because a plastic card can't do that. You need like actual enforcement at the border and deportations not just to France, back to where they fucking came from, right? So he's obsessed with Estonia and India's system. But nobody talks about China's system, right? Because we don't want to be talking about China, because then people start to realize that they're after a prison. Supposedly reducing fraud and enhancing efficiency. Like, I mean, we get hacked. The government gets hacked all the fucking time. Like, it is the most dangerous thing for our government to do. It is put everybody's fucking biometrics on a spreadsheet, because that's what it'll be, right? It will just be a spreadsheet with a password. It's not going to be safe. It's just money laundering. So in July 24, Tony Blair was pushing it. Labour was saying, we're not going to do it. Don't worry, we're not doing this. It's not part of our manifesto. And then in August 2025, all of a sudden, it's a thing, right? And September 2025, it's in. So at the same time, we had Mandelson. Like, so we have to pay attention to the timings, right? So Mandelson gets ousted from Epstein stuff, and he was in control of Tony Blair and McSweeney, dodgy McSweeney. Starmer's got like this farmland that he just gifted, and he didn't pay any tax or inheritance tax on, and he put it into a trust, and he comes out with the idea, a digital ID announcement, and that's non-stop from the MSN, right? Again, the consultation around digital IDs with regard specifically to immigration, which is what they're talking about now, the results are not going to be mentioned until 2026. And I think I was the only person who went, wait a minute, how the fuck's he done this? Like, we literally only submitted our consultation information like a week ago. Like, how they never move that fast, ever. So it's just ludicrous. So there are lies going around, right? So there's lots of information going around saying that it's Tony Blair's son and his metaverse organization that's going to get hundreds of millions. He's not actually linked to it. When you look into it, however, Oracle and Larry, what's his name? Ellison. No, is it Larry? Okay, well, so everyone's saying Ewan Blair's organization is going to profit, and he isn't. Multiverse, which, by the way, has got like hundreds of millions. So this is dodgy about that organization. Before I try and find the guy's name, I'm sure it's Larry Ellison. So this was an interesting little tidbit. So Multiverse, it kind of does training programs. It's raised 220 million in funding. It's valued at 1.7 billion, but has 60 million in losses. So what did they do with all that money? Like, that's money laundering right there. Like, they're supposed to connect companies with non-degree talent through training programs. Like, they do apprenticeships and skills training, right, around tech. That's a lot of money to get and then, like, be losing. Like, I didn't have time to kind of Google into that and grok into that, but that was just like, that's really dodgy. It's strange. Where are we? Oh, here we go. Larry Ellison. Here we go. There we go. So TBI, Tony Blair Institute, which is obviously a non-profit, is being funded by donors such as Larry Ellison, who's Oracle's founder, who gave them over 200 million, right? And Larry Ellison, does create databases. So he does create spreadsheets with front-facing fancy stuff. And in fact, when his very first database was for the CIA. How interesting is that? So Larry Ellison, born 1944, New York, co-founder and executive chairman and CTO of Oracle Corporation, which is a global leader in database software and cloud computing. With a net worth exceeding $250 billion in 2025, Ellison is one of the world's richest individuals, known for his aggressive business tactics and tech influence. So Oracle was founded in 1977 as Software Development Laboratories, SDL. It grew from a small startup to a 950 billion company by September 2025, driven by its database systems and now AI and cloud computing ventures. So their early contract was with the CIA. Here we go. So they actually, and the reason why they changed their name is because the early project they worked on was called Oracle. So they changed the name of the company to match the CIA name. In the mid-1970s, Ellison, Bob Miner, and Ed Oates worked at Ampex Corporation, doing database projects for the CIA with a $50,000 contract. So then later on, they founded SDL, which changed to Oracle. And obviously, CIA was Oracle's first customer. And their job was to manage intelligence data. By 1986, Oracle's intellectual property made Ellison a multimillionaire with government contracts, which were 25% of their revenue, $2.5 billion annually by 2002. And at the same time, obviously, other companies such as IBM were also working with the CIA. And obviously, we then have to go, IBM was also working with the Nazis, and they're the ones who made the system to kind of track the Jews working, not working, right? The little ticker machine thingies. And tracking all the database. So they kind of had like the original kind of database with all of the prison numbers, tattoo numbers and stuff. So, the CIA doesn't really give a shit who it works with. Let's be fair. So in 2001, so after 9/11, Ellison offered Oracle software to create a national ID system to thwart terrorists. How weird that Oracle, who fund Tony Blair, also decided in 2001 after 9/11 that they would do the database for this national ID card in the UK and in the USA. How weird. How weird. They've had to wait 25 years and they're coming back around again. So they formed airport security partnerships. So they already got the information. So what I'm saying, they already have the information. You just haven't realized. So they've already got everybody's biometrics, because every time you go to an airport, you're like freaking scanned left, right, and center. So the analyst Bob Austrian, he noted Oracle's niche in database-intensive tracking applications, giving it an edge in government contracts. So they also work with federal, state, local agencies, 1,000 employees dedicated to public sector sales, and this was by 2002, right? So that is a long time ago. So his push for a national ID is exactly the same time. And now we go 24 years in the future, and he's funding the TBI, which Tony Blair's institute, to again bring digital IDs in. So it will be his company, not necessarily Multiverse. It'll be his company that's the one who gets it. And AI-driven governance, right? So we are going to minority reported. But it's already that they're already doing it, right? This is what you really need to hold on to. They're already doing it. They just can't tell people they're doing it, right? So they can't use the stuff that they find. They can't act on any of this information because they're not supposed to be doing it, because we keep saying no, but they already are. They already have this information. They're already using this information. They just can't mention it. Um, and then now we have Oracle is being part of the consortium that's trying to get TikTok being framed, because obviously the Chinese are pushing Gaza stuff, and Ellison's tied to Israel. And so we've got Mossad, CIA, do we say Epstein, right? Like it's the same fucking people. Like, and I mean, you have to laugh, because otherwise you really would just probably cry. Um but yeah, so I don't know where people are kind of pushing the whole multiverse and UN stuff. That's there's no like information that shows that's got any kind of real backing. It all seems to be smoke and mirrors, and it's the same people who were pushing it. So Ellison, Mossad funded, but remember, Mossad and CIA, like they're the same, and MI6. Everybody forgets MI6. Also, like it's the same. They're all controlled by each other. It's just like it's the same spy agency with like different branches. However, the spies think they're separate, right? The people who are doing the work think that they're like, we don't share stuff with, like, you know, like MI6, like, we don't share stuff with the CIA. And you're like, yeah, but your bosses fucking do, because they work together, because they're the ones manipulating everything. So anyway, right. Let's see if the other information is now caught up. Oh. Okay, so what I did next, right, is I was like, okay, so what could we do to block it? And obviously I'm going to talk about this, and then you'll see all this appear on people's random, people will start talking about this. They'll do fake lawsuits, and it'll just ruin it all. But it's fine. It's fine, because I'm not going to give. It's fine. So what I wanted to know is, okay, well, how can we stop this, right? Because once they do it, then they have control, right? So not right now, they can't actually act on it. So once we have the card, they can enforce, right? So they will be able to enforce the things, and right now they can't. It'd be really easy to just cut. I mean, so it's really easy to cut you off from your bank account already, right? They just pay the banks to close your account. They've already been doing that, right? They can go to your mortgage company and tell your mortgage company to reject your mortgage. They already do those things, but they just can't do it as obviously. So obviously, there's the Human Rights Act. So we have Article 8, which is freedom of expression, Article 10, non-discrimination, and Article 14. So those articles are cornerstone for challenging digital IDs. However, the laws don't have to be compliant with those articles, right? It's only Articles 1, 2, and 3, which they must not breach. Everything else, they can just say, oh, well, it's not compatible. It's fine. Oh, my apologies, it's not compatible. So we have Article 8, right to private and family life. So mandatory digital IDs, especially biometric ones, infringe on privacy by collecting and storing personal data. So the case in the European Court of Human Rights, so S and MARPA versus the UK, ruled that indefinite retention of DNA and fingerprints violated Article 8, setting a precedent for challenging excessive data collection, and a mandatory digital ID scheme could face judicial review if it lacked proportionality. And so, bearing in mind when we had the COVID stuff come in, they initially wanted to make sure that they had access to people's biometric data forever. That was the initial, if you look at the very initial COVID legislation, that was in there. And they were not allowed. They had to say that they could only have it for X number of years. But so they tried again. They tried to do this through the back door with the COVID pass. Article 14, which is non-discrimination. So there's 2.1 million offline Britons, so elderly, low income. So if access to services such as jobs, housing, benefits, all of that stuff is, they can't get it, right? So they can't access what they need because they don't use technology. So I mean, the easiest way to address that balance is you kill off all the elderly. Because then they're not a problem. And you think about how many elderly people died thanks to COVID. Well, not COVID, it's thanks to the vaccines, right? And then, they just didn't treat them during COVID. So you make it not a problem. Now, who remembers one of the huge reasons why they're trying to get rid of the Human Rights Act? What power do we have as people to challenge the laws? We have the judicial review process, right? And this is part of the Human Rights Act that we can push back. I mean, it costs a lot of money and we very rarely win. Well, I say we very rarely win. That's because we, the people, don't do it. They just do fake ones. This is what the Good Law Project makes all their money off, right? They do like 98% of the judicial reviews they do, they lose, right? So they're either really shit lawyers or it's all for show, right? It's all crowdfunded. It's all for show because their arguments are bollocks, right? They're just shit arguments. But the Bill of Rights was getting rid of that, right? That's what it was going to do. It was just completely erasing it as an option, as in when Parliament decides a thing, Parliament decides a thing. So we still have the judicial review, and we have Liz Truss, Kemi Badenoch, Nigel Farage, all of those people now pushing to get rid of the Human Rights Act, right? I told you we must secure the Human Rights Act. Everything they're doing with regards to the illegals not being deported because of it, with regards to asylum and benefits, all of that is to psyop you into getting rid of it. Like, it is the thing that saved our lives during COVID. If the laws we have in place are applied correctly, we can deport the illegals. We don't have to stick them in hotels. We don't have to do any of those things, right? At all, because they're committing crimes. And as soon as you commit a crime, you are no longer protected under the Human Rights Act, right? Your right to liberty, I mean, you're not allowed to be tortured, but your right to liberty and a private life, that's gone. Like, you forfeit that because you commit a crime, which is why you go to prison, which is why you're not allowed to vote, right? Which is why we hold terrorists up to 28 days without charge. Those things are the things that the European Court of Human Rights said you can't do, and our government says we're fucking doing it. So don't let people tell you we have to get rid of the Human Rights Act, otherwise we can't get rid of the illegals. That's bullshit. Other countries in Europe may not have a Human Rights Act embedded in their laws, but they prescribe to the European Court of Human Rights. Hungary, And Poland doesn't have fucking illegals everywhere. We have Germany fucking deporting them left, right, and center. We have Italy refusing to let them in. We have Greece, like so. Just you're being psyoped about the Human Rights Act, and I said they will try again and again and again and again, right? Because they have to get rid of it. Because it offers us so much protection. People just don't realize. And it was never used properly for Julian Assange. And I've said that multiple times. They literally could have just said, you're breaching article, I think it's Article 1, which is like the one that says that once you've committed a crime, then you refuse. So we shouldn't be having people in prison on remand. Like, that's against the Human Rights Act. What? Nobody says that? Because we have innocent until proven guilty. And until you're proven guilty, you haven't committed a crime, which means you then can't be punished for a crime you haven't committed. Right? So we have to make sure we're applying the law equally. It's the Human Rights Act isn't the problem. The lawyers are the fucking problem. The judiciary are the fucking problem. The magic wheel deciding who the jurors are is the problem. And we will be decitizened, and that's it. And I will be decitizened and shipped to Ireland. I don't want to be decitizened. Okay, so the Human Rights Act preserved the strength and allows us to do a judicial review. So we probably have to crowdfund that because that's really expensive. And we don't want bullshit shill lawyers doing it. Right? We've got AI. Just fucking using AI. So national security and public safety, right? That's what they'll use to say, well, we're just circumventing the Human Rights Act. That's fine. I will argue, if you're now saying that the illegals is a threat to national security, I'm going to ask you why you're not securing our border. Because why are you waiting for them to come into the country to issue them a biometric ID so you can track them when you believe they're a threat? You shouldn't be letting them on the soil. Right? So there's so many boomerangs with the fact that they're just retarded. So, but what I wanted to do is I wanted to go outside Human Rights Act is an obvious one, right? But we also have, and this is one I never even considered, the Data Protection Act and GDPR. And I was like, oh, GDPR, love a good old GDPR. So which is the general data protection regulations for everybody who's outside the UK. So this literally states any personal data that's being processed must, you have to consent to. That's it. You cannot make an ID mandatory, because if I don't consent to it, then you're breaching GDPR. You cannot store my data unless I consent to it. And we have that in other laws anyway, but we literally have the GDPR that says you cannot store my data unless I consent. I don't consent to a digital ID, so you're fucked. And this is why they say, well, you can't work. But if everybody refuses to consent, then there's nobody working, right? And this is what happened if you look at those brave carers who refused the vaccine and they left their jobs, right? So I don't have to argue with myself. Katie, do you consent to? And I'll be like, no, well, you can't work for yourself, right? I don't have to argue with myself, but it can't be mandatory because that breaches GDPR. So that's, they can just revoke the GDPR laws, right? So they can just remove a law, but as it stands, and everybody wait a minute, so you're gonna stop us consenting to our data being stored? So that means anybody just get my data? That's not gonna go down well. and all those GDPR consultants will have something to say about it. The Data Use and Access Act 2025, which received royal assent on June 19, 2025, establishes a digital identity trust framework to ensure compliance, but doesn't mandate IDs, right? So breaches like sharing data without consent can lead to ICO fines or lawsuits. So they will. We can demand data deletion if it's no longer necessary. So if you don't consent in the first place, and then you can demand its deletion, like this is just. And so basically, if there's a hack, you could be like, right, I just don't trust you with my data. I don't trust you. And I would say I don't trust him in the beginning. Now, the Data Protection Act supposedly allows exemptions for national security. So again, this is why they'll use national. This is why they had to. Obviously, they tried with terrorists and national security, but there wasn't very many terrorists in the UK, right? So they had to import the terrorists. They had to create the isolated pockets of extremists. They had to pretend they were doing stuff to combat extremism. Bearing in mind the CIA, MI6 and Mossad created ISIS and created the whole jihadi stuff and funded everything that happened in the Middle East in the 70s and 80s and then imported it. So this is like long-term planning. This isn't like they woke up one morning and all of a sudden the illegals are here. This is long-term planning. And I've spoken before about like the books that they learn to count and read from, right? It's not like Roger, Red Hat, and I mean, I used to love The Village with Three Corners. Jill and what is it? Jill and they were Yellow Hats, whoever they were. The Village with Three Corners. They're not learning about idyllic counting with apples. They have machine guns. Like, how many machine guns are there? How many people can you get inside a tank? Right. This is the stuff that children are learning from. So they are. This is where you get child soldiers, and it's not like a percentage of the population. It is embedded in their psyche. We are now third generation, right? From what was funded by MI6, CIA, Mossad, 1960s, 1970s, right? So national security. So they were like, oh, well, we can store it. It's like, okay, you want to store my law-abiding data for national security, but you're going to let that person in without an ID? Like, how's that secure? I was already fucking here. I was already here. You know me. I'm not even quiet about what I think, right? So we also have common law and judicial review. So obviously judicial review is the thing that the HRA, Human Rights Act, protected, and it's embedded in there. So UK courts can review government actions for illegality, irrationality, or procedural unfairness via judicial review. So examples: Miller versus the Secretary of State 2017, the Supreme Court ruled that a major constitutional change, for example Brexit, required parliamentary approval. So a mandatory digital ID scheme could face similar scrutiny if it bypasses Parliament or public consultation. So if they try and do it in the same way that Boris used to introduce the COVID stuff, like on a Friday, they'd get pissed up in the parliamentary bar. Then the next day, it was like all of a sudden, this is the new guidance, this is the new rule, this is the new law. That we have grounds to be like, no. The Windrush scandal exposed Home Office data errors leading to wrongful deportations, 4-year pause in immigration checks. So a digital ID system relying on flawed data could be challenged as irrational or discriminatory. Again, the courts will defer to national security, right? So we have to make sure. So you have to remember, national security is their argument. So we just prove that an ID is not going to solve the problem. If they're now agreeing, right? They have inadvertently now agreed that the illegals are a national security risk. So do you remember maybe just like 3 months ago, they weren't national security, they were refugees, they're irregular migrants, they're people who are fleeing countries, they're not criminals. We need to stop treating like criminals. Now they're national security risk. So they just fucked themselves over by doing this. Like they've just boxed themselves in because an ID card doesn't stop the boats, right? So they're so stupid. They're so stupid. But nobody else has realised they've boxed themselves in. They're just like, oh my god, an ID card. Like, okay, well, let's see the language they're doing, and that's the boomerang. So Freedom of Information Act, right? Okay, so we need to start hammering the FOIs. We need to start getting the information from them, and they will be like, I can't give it to you for national security. It's fine. We just fucking do it anyway. And I'm still waiting on some back from the Met. I need to chase that up. So we need to get details on contracts such as Oracle, TBI, the Metaverse, and then we can appeal to the Information Commissioner's office. So if you've never done an FOI before, I urge you to use the What People Know website. Is that the right one? Wait me. Oh, wait a minute. What do they know? Sorry. The reason why I say I urge you to do the What Do They Know website is because they have lots of templates, and they will send you an email to say you haven't heard from XYZ. Please update us with the status. Also, it's really easy to kind of find what else has been done. So there are rules around FOI. Is if they think it's going to take over 20 hours, they will refuse it. If you're asking multiple things, they will refuse it. So you basically have to do one FOI, one really specific thing, something that they can find out relatively quickly and easily. And the best way to do it is have lots of different people doing different requests. And then you kind of just pool your resources. So you just need to go to What Do They Know? And it's free. It's free to kind of sign up, and it's really, really simple to do it. Really easy to do it. I've done lots. I didn't know about that website, and I did lots before. So not all of mine are on there, but so we also have historical precedent, right? With regards to the Identity Card 2006 Act was repealed. So it was repealed due to the excessive amount of money that was spent on only 15,000 cards. But also we now have like a petition, which is like 1.5-2 million people are saying no. People are saying no. There's no, the public don't want it. And so they can still do it, right? So just because you decide you don't want it, they can still do it. But again, you then have to just decide not to consent, and you have to be strong enough to be like, okay, well, I will quite happily go to court, take me to court. And the problem is that fear tactic works a lot to stop people. Where are we? Oh, no, it's frozen again. Okay. Oh, no. I don't know. So With regards to it not being, the IDs are not the thing that's gonna stop the boat jump. Oh, we all know that, right? So we gotta put kind of like a legal head on, and you have to prove it, right? So the burden of proof, so we would have to prove that the ID card does not solve the national security risk. And in fact, the government are being negligent if they are saying that that's going to do it. So how do we know this? Well, there are other countries that have like digital ID cards. So we have Singapore, India, Estonia, Nigeria. They have digital ID cards and they have illegals. We have the United States, Japan, and New Zealand who have no ID cards. And in Japan, where are we? Oh, where's the numbers? Oh, okay. Sorry, my apologies. So the USA, they don't have digital ID, and illegal crossings went from 850,000 to, well, I mean, right now, if you listen to his UN speech, it's like there's none, right? Because they secured the border. They built the wall. They secured the border. New Zealand don't have digital IDs. They rely on passports and visas. It's also an island, so that's important. We're an island. They have strict biosecurity and immigration checks. And in 2023, only 1,200 illegal migrants were intercepted. And most were deported via physical ID verification. And they actually held them. They detain them until they identify the person using Interpol. Like Interpol will help them identify these people, and then they send them back to where they came from. So nobody's kicking off at New Zealand for doing the exact same thing that we fucking want to do. Like that's what they're doing. Japan, they have a strict immigration policy. They deported 12,000 people. They have a less than 0.1% are illegal migrants. They have borders. They also have low asylum acceptance. So less, like 1% of asylum applications are accepted. Like the illegals, here's a statistic for you. Out of the illegals that jumped last year in boats, 95% of them were accepted as asylum claims. And some of them fucking went on holiday back to their own country and then came back, right? So it's not, we're not like detaining them and deporting them. We are accepted. So when you're like, well, this one in, one out scheme, why aren't we deporting them? We're not deporting them because we've just given them asylum status. Like between 93 and over the last 4 years, between 93 and 95% of every single illegal has been given asylum status. Because of the backlog. The backlog was inhumane, so they just fucking started rubber stamping every single person. Regardless of who they are, without verifying anything, they're in this country. So we do not need a digital ID because there's free countries that have no illegals, and the ones that do show up, they fucking get rid of them back to where they came from with no issue. Now, most of our illegals in the last few years have gone from places like Iraq, Afghanistan, Iran, Syria, Turkey, and they show up with no ID. And you always get this from the fucking lefties. Well, you know, they've had to escape a war-torn country. Of course they don't have their passport with them. You try entering Afghanistan, Iraq, Iran, or Syria, or Turkey without fucking ID. You're getting detained. I mean, you could get shot, right? So they have ID. And actually, these countries have mandatory ID that you must carry. So they have them, right? In order for them to get out of the country, they would have had to show their fucking ID. So Iraq requires passports and visas for entry with biometric checks at major airports. Since 2017, they have a national ID card. It's mandatory for citizens and used for internal security, right? Afghanistan's ENID has been in place since 2014, mandatory for citizens and foreigners who need passports and visas. The Taliban have been controlling borders since 2021. They enforce ID checks at all crossings, detaining or deporting undocumented entrants. Iran requires passports and visas with biometric registration for foreigners. So you, as a foreigner, you have to register with your biometrics. Their Amayesh card is mandatory for refugees. Undocumented entrants face arrest or deportation under their 1976 immigration law. So the countries they come from, they have mandatory ID cards. If we, and I've said this before, if we can identify ancient skeletons and we can figure out where they came from, whether they were north and they traveled south, we know what they ate, their diet, we can tell by their hair, we can tell by their teeth. Like, you just fucking DNA swab them and send them home. And if they're choosing not to bring an ID with them, which means that we can't identify who they are, I'm afraid you don't have a legitimate asylum claim because I can't guarantee you're not a criminal. Sucks to be you, because when you get back to your country, you're going to be fucking detained because you no longer have your ID. Sorry, love. Shouldn't have left in the first place. And they must have ID on them if they're going home for fucking holidays, right? So wanker IDs. So we also have oh, not, yeah, my apologies. Oh, now I've got like, let's go down. Okay, so that was like, it's just as if the card is going to be the thing. This is me. I'm not going to talk about this because that, I can't risk that getting stolen and ruined. But people can actually absolutely use the stuff that I've just mentioned. I don't care. So, okay, so let's go and have a little look at Trumpy's speech. So if you haven't watched Trump's UN speech, I do oh no. Okay. So I do recommend that you kind of just listen to it. He got there and so it's okay. So I didn't realize that it was being held in New York, and obviously New York was a cesspool. And then he got the National Guard in and he cleaned it up, right? So he cleaned it up in advance because you know that they were going to do some kind of like false flag. You know that they were going to do something to be like, oh my God, America. They couldn't do it, right? So he literally took that away from them. So when he turned up to whichever building, the UN quarters, hey, Linda. So you've just missed me talking about the Wanker Card, and we're just moving into Trump's speech. So you know that they were going to do some kind of false flag, which they couldn't do because New York's no longer a cesspit of violence and crime. But the escalator didn't work for him, but it worked for everybody else. He got on stage, and the teleprompter happened to have broken, right? And then like they just of course they were fucking sabotaged. Like, it's so retarded. Like, how petty. How petty. Anyway, so I mean, I think he had his paper with him, so he was fine. So, but as I was kind of doing folding the clothes, I was listening to the things that he was saying, and I was like, "Oh, this is interesting." It's deleted my notes. Oh no! Oh no! Oh my gosh! Okay, here we go. Okay, so I was listening to the speech. So I mean, it was really, really funny watching him. Um, just dig the knife in, right? Over things that it just finally talking about this stuff. And I started watching on C-SPAN, and I was scrolling the comments as well originally, and I was just like, these people are like, they just so left. They were like, oh, it's like the Trump show. I was like, are you not listening to what he's like, actually listening to what he's telling you? Because like, if you did, maybe you'd be angry at everything that's been going. Like, they just TDS is got to be in like the DSM-6. It has to be. um, so we had him. He ridiculed them because it's true. He's talking about all the peace deals that he did, right? And where was the UN? Like, why has it taken the president of the United States to broker peace deals between multiple different countries? So we had Azerbaijan and Armenia. We had Pakistan and India were about to pop up. Does everybody remember that? We had peace in the Middle East. This is obviously before he was ousted, and then he's gone back round and done stuff again, right? So we had the Abraham Accords. Sorry. We've had Israel and Gaza trying to kill each other, and he's been pushing for peace, and everybody else just hasn't, right? We've had he's been pushing for peace between Russia and Ukraine. It's not there yet, but he's at least been trying to stop the wars, and this is the point of the UN. And at no point has the UN ever intervened to stop these wars, ever. They've been making it worse. And so Trump's saying, they've been writing strongly worded letters without action, right? They have a fucking, like, NATO is the peacekeeping force. Like, so what they could have done, right, is just deployed fucking blue helmets. Like, I mean, we don't want blue helmets on the streets. I'm telling you that we don't. But that's the point, is that UN peacekeepers, what have they been doing? They've been busy raping and mutilating people in other countries, right? Because they're not peacekeepers. They're just fucking gangsters and money launderers. But it's right. Like, so the UN is not fit for purpose. It's never done the thing that it's supposed to be doing. So as a nation, why the fuck are we funding them? Why are we giving them money to not do the thing that they're supposed to be doing? Like, I don't agree with the UN. I think we should 100%. I think we should defund it. I don't think it should exist. I don't think we should have any international organizations overseeing countries. I don't agree with any international organization being in control. I don't believe that any international non-elected organization has a right to dictate what other countries do. I don't believe we in the UK, with our long Christian-based culture, has a right to tell Islamic countries what they should be doing. I don't think we have a right to tell any other country what they should be doing, because that's not up to us, right? That's their country. The same way they have no right to tell us what to do. Like, we deserve to be a sovereign nation, do what the fuck that we want, because the people in this nation decide that's what we are going to do. If you come to this country, this is what happens. These are our rules, these are our laws, this is our culture. If you don't like this, don't come to our country. We're not going to be offended. Fuck off somewhere else. If I don't agree with your laws, your culture, and your customs, I'm not going to come visit your country. Like, this is what is fundamentally wrong with this whole entire international global fucking system. Is we have unique cultures, we have unique worldviews. It doesn't mean we can't trade with one another. I mean, I personally do not think we should be trading with China in any capacity, because of the horrific. If we have really strong morals and ethics, then we shouldn't be buying things from a country that is torturing people, organ harvesting, and committing genocide, right? And if that means we can't buy the latest TVs, like we have no more TVs imported, or there's a 3-year wait on us having any technology because somebody in the UK needs to start up a fucking factory and it costs us a bit more, then that's what happens, right? I genuinely believe that. If everybody just stopped fucking buying from China, China's government would collapse and the Chinese people would be free. Because they've got no money. If the EU really wanted to stop Russia, they would stop importing their fucking oil and gas. You don't put sanctions, you should be like, that's fine, we'll buy it from somebody else. I mean, and you know, so if people are thinking, oh, that doesn't work, look what happened to Arla. And FYI, to everybody outside the United Kingdom, Arla was already doing Bovaer in your milk. So in the USA, you had Bovaer in your milk since 2021, I believe. The UK found out they were going to do it. They went, fuck you, we're not buying your milk anymore. And within months, they had to close a giant factory. They had to let 100 staff go, and they had to stop doing it. So you have if everybody who believes themselves to be moral and ethical stopped buying shit from China. I mean, it's a bit difficult sometimes when you buy something off Amazon and you say it's a UK small business and you think it's made in the UK and it's not. But that's what we should do. We shouldn't be having sanctions. The government should just block anything from coming in. And UK-based companies should be fined for purchasing from China. How quickly would we develop technology and get our shit together? And or other places in Europe. So two paths would happen, right? One, the Chinese government would collapse and they would no longer be under fucking communist rule and being raped, tortured, mutilated for shits and giggles. Two, China would no longer be a threat to the entire world. 3, the UK would have some kind of independence with the things that it's creating and crafting and making, and we wouldn't be having shit products. Yes, it might cost a bit more, but it's not being created through slave labor, and it's not gonna fucking fall apart because we have higher standards with the stuff that we create and make. It's not like we can't do these things. It's not like we don't have the factory space. It's not like we don't have the people to do it. There's just no desire for it because you can get it cheaper somewhere else, right? You just you just stop funding it. It's not hard. So then we had, what else did he mention? He was talking about COVID-19 being a biological weapon. He mentioned the fact that we have countries still investing and tinkering with biological weapons. I mean, he mentioned China, but he obviously didn't mention North Carolina University and the NIH and that it was funded by the USA, which annoys me, but, you know, it is what it is. At least he kind of mentioned it's a biological weapon. And he was saying that he's going to where is it? So we already have the chemical and biological weapons memorandum from the 70s as part of the fucking UN, right? So we have this thing. They did nothing about the COVID bioweapon. Like the UN it shouldn't exist. Neither should the fucking International Criminal Court. That needs to go. Like all of that needs to go. Like Interpol needs to go. Like multiple police services can work together. Like you can do that. You don't have to have one organization, and Europol needs to go. But Europe does not need its own police force. Now that we have digital technology, if I want to speak to a police officer in France, I can just fucking jump on Microsoft Teams or Zoom or whatever digital platform you want to speak. It doesn't matter that you speak a different language because you can just have like closed captions on the screen translating real time from French to English, and they can have English to French, right? So it doesn't matter. You actually don't need world organizations anymore because individual countries and people can talk to each other. It's fine. Right, so they've just made themselves redundant. They don't realize this, but no, everybody's just forgetting this, that they are now surplus to requirement. We don't need you anymore. And you were shit at your job anyway. So what's that phrase? Learn to code. Get a new job. But he says he's going to enforce it. And it's also important to mention we have to remember that China are the biggest funders of the WHO, right? The WHO, the ones who forced the lockdown, they're trying to push the next pandemic. And so Trump's not saying he's going to push this whole biological weapons block. Like he's just saying, we're not doing it anymore. So he literally just told you, we're not doing it anymore. It needs to stop. People went. I don't think people have been listening properly. So he's going to enforce the Biological Weapons Convention with AI. That's interesting because, I mean, it'll be interesting depending on whose AI, right, and what the AI is being told on the back end. And he did say it could be very dangerous. It could. But you can very quickly run information through an AI and you can find out the truth. Like you can ask, like it's faster, right? So you're not waiting months and months and months of analysis, and everybody can talk to each other, right? So we don't need the WHO either. We don't need a World Health Organization because, again, the police, they can have conversations, scientists in other countries can have conversations, and you can have a database being organized and this would be like a more advanced Excel spreadsheet database, organized, and information being pulled in multiple languages and being fed into in multiple languages. It doesn't matter where you are in the world, you can interact with this thing, right? So one of the things that I do a lot is I will say to whichever AI I'm using, I say, I need you to make sure you are only getting information from PubMed. Or I'll kind of like name other scientific databases and journal databases, because I don't want bullshit information. I don't want grabbing stuff from Wikipedia, Wikishilia, whatever you want to call it, because it's not fucking. It's a bullshitpedia, right? I don't want them taking information from social media. I don't want blog post like bullshit information. So you can be very specific. You could have a specific AI that people can plug into and anybody can access, that is specifically linked into, like, like a custom GPT. We could literally have a world health GPT. And on the back end, you have all the scientists and the researchers uploading their raw data, not their peer-reviewed journal article, but their raw data, the information, the methodologies they used, their names and addresses, the universities that they're affiliated. So you would be able to check affiliations because they don't declare it. And if it's not peer reviewed, it's not published. And so they just refuse to peer review, right? They just refuse to publish. So this would enable any researchers. Like, that would be free science. I would be very excited for something like that. Like actual science that anybody can access. And it doesn't matter what your level of understanding is. If you are just so as an example, right? So I've got loads of books. But I mean, I've got quite a few essential oil books. But I always want to know the latest research, right? Because there's research being done all the time. And I will kind of like plug into whichever AI I'm using. So I know XYZ oil, this research shows this. Can you find the latest research? Can you find meta-analysis? Can you find placebo-controlled trials? Can you find any human trials rather than in vitro or animal trials? And then explicitly say, I need you to make sure you're only looking on this database, and this database. So, and then I get like the latest research. After watching Tor's show with Trump, Bibi speech, I made you feel better. Not good. I'm not quite sure what you mean, sweet. Setting up a board with Tony Blair for peace in the Middle East. What? Trump has set up a board for peace in the Middle East with Tony Blair? I mean, that's hilarious. No. I haven't watched. I'm like miles behind on Tor's stuff. But yeah, watch his UN speech. Yeah. He also like straight up told the UN that you are responsible for child trafficking and destroying the West by funding. Literally says they funded illegal immigrants into the US and the West. And he gave them a specific monetary amount of $372 million. they paid for 624,000 migrants, right? So, um, oh yeah, I haven't watched it. So he's facing the UN people, and he's saying, "You guys spent 372 million funding 600,000 people to illegally enter the US." And then obviously he mentioned the 300,000 children who've gone missing, lots who will be dead, lots who they will never recover, but 30,000 they've managed to return home to their parents, right? And we also have to remember, so you might be thinking, well, where did those 30,000 children come from? Some of them get stolen. Sometimes the parents are pressured into selling them. Some, like I said, some of them are stolen, but quite often they sell them. But it's a threat to, either you give us your child or we kill the other children. So if you've never looked into how they kind of like get kids, it's quite horrific, but it's worth doing it. So it's not difficult for them to kind of, get the kids, right? So it's nice that 30,000 have gone home. So Grok said the context, the UN's International Organization for Migrants, provides humanitarian aid to migrants, but it doesn't directly fund illegal US crossings. Well, of course it does, but also USAID would be doing it, and they got rid of that. The UK foreign aid is doing it. Obviously, the Red Cross is funded. So there's loads of NGOs, but the UN will be it's involved in it, right? It's responsible for it, because it's their job to make sure that it's not happening. So we've also got, I've just mentioned the 30,000 kids. So Germany, it was interesting. I didn't realize this, but obviously Germany's under new management, and they have been deporting. But also, they no longer signed up to the EU Green Deal, right? They've just gone, fuck that shit. So we're not even part of the EU. Why are we still doing it? Like, if Germany are part of the EU and they've gone, no, and, they've not been kicked out of the EU, they're still there, like, and they're doing, like, mass deportations. So we can do it. Well, Grok's saying that that's not true. But I think there's Grok can't always find information. So I'm going to, because it looked at Germany. So while Trump was talking, the camera panned to Germany, and they were kind of like, they were nodding along, right? So they didn't go, no, we're not like at all. Like they weren't they were, yep. Then he was mentioning North Sea oil, and so UK based, right? So obviously we're destroying ourselves with our whatever percentage reduction we made in our fucking carbon. We are this teeny tiny compared to fucking everyone else. You got India and China fucking pumping out the carbon. So it's irrelevant. It does not matter. It does not count in any way, shape, or form what we do. In any way, shape, or form. I mean, other than it just kills us and makes everything really fucking expensive for us. So he mentioned, see, this is like, so Grok lies. Grok lies. So he mentioned there's loads of oil in the North Sea, and he also mentioned there's loads of oil that they haven't found yet, which actually means they know exactly where it is, but they aren't using it, right? So they haven't found it means they know where it is. Grok is saying it didn't mention North Sea oil or UK taxes. He specifically said it costs lots of money. That's why you can't do it. We have a drill, baby, drill. Like, and he said he spent 3 days encouraging the UK Prime Minister, who I like, by the way. That's not me. That's what he's saying, because he says that about everybody, right? He's a nice guy. I was encouraging him to stop those windmills. So literally 5 minutes he was talking about UK oil, and Grok saying he didn't mention it. So, but the UK's North Sea has untapped oil. So they have Rosebank Field has 300 million barrels of oil, but you have to pay 75% tax. And then Labour's banned new licenses to block any chance of actually getting that oil out. So, bearing in mind, we can always do judicial review. We can always contest laws in courts. I mean, just because they're saying that they're not going to do it doesn't mean it's impossible. I looked into the potential for us creating like a UK cooperative just to get the fucking oil out. And I was like, well, that's okay. How much is it going to cost? So, I mean, it's doable. In 3 years, we could have a UK cooperative where we are pumping, up to 20,000 barrels of oil a day, which is like insane. And if we had 20 million people, I think there's probably more than 20 million people in the UK paying extortionate amounts of money for their electricity, their heating, their oil and stuff like that. So it would be easy. Like if they just paid 10 quid, right? 10 quid to start up UK oil. However, the profits is about £3 a year. What it would do, though, is shit them up. So in 3 years, you could have your £10 back. But it would force it would disrupt the big six energy giants, right? If people decided, right, well, we're not going to do it. And then I was like, okay, well, how would we? Because initially Grok was saying, well, you need to kind of like the best thing to do is to sell the oil on the open market and then redistribute the wealth. And I was like, but we don't want that. We want to pump it and use it, right? If I've paid in £10, then I'm going to get oil, but I'm gonna get it. So it was like, okay, well, you just and costed it would only cost us 100 million. So we don't need 20 million people. We only need 10 million to pay a tenner, and you can have a UK oil cooperative. And you can get about, I think it worked out, you can have a month and a half's supply of heating and electricity. But not electricity, obviously. You can have like heating, or there was like I think it was like a set number, so many hundreds of miles or 1,000. So you could use it, but Grok was like, well, you only want to kind of distribute maybe 25% and then sell something. And I was just like, oh my god, this is really stressing me out. But it's not as expensive as it is to do. But that would force it. So a lot of the staff, you have to think about, okay, how can we force them to not do these things, right? So you could start with maybe oil, then you could crowdfund, because if it's just UK energy, right? So then you can crowdfund coal mines. You can crowdfund like forest wood chopping, right? I was genuinely surprised at how little it would cost a lot of us to create our own like energy actually, I mean, so not just like do the company thing, which is like really 500 quid. I mean, actually go from concept to be pumping oil and distributing oil back to people in the UK could be done in 3 years from start to finish, and this is like buying your own rig, rights to everything, distribution, lorries, like thousands of jobs created. I mean, nobody would be getting rich off it, but you would disrupt the energy industry, and you just need 10 million people to pay a tenner to get it started. To buy a mine, a coal mine. It's open, you know, we've got loads of coal mines. And I'm sure the farmers would be happy with the idea of no longer them having to sell their fricking fields to solar panels that break and don't work. I think people forget how powerful they are. I mean, I don't don't think, I mean, so there's the idea of profit sharing out of like £3 a year is probably not gonna get anybody very excited. But so at the moment, you're getting it's like £1, what is he saying? £1.40 a barrel. We could force it down to like 80p a barrel by doing it. So then everything would come, like we could force it to come down because we just take it away from them. Right? So how did BP and Shell and all of those, they got a monopoly. So they don't, and so doing it as a cooperative, it costs like £500 to set up a cooperative. And you just do like UK Energy. And inside that, you could also diversify and look into, you can get R&D grants, and then imagine reviving Tesla's free energy research under UK Energy, right? So you'd be able to force down the price of oil. Then you'd be able to R&D like Tesla's free energy research and stuff. And so at the end, the where it could go could see energy freedom in the UK. But I was surprised at how little people would need. I mean, you'd need a lot of people to invest, not very much, but it's doable. If they had like 2 million people, 3 million people going down to London to see Tommy, I mean, how? I mean, £10 isn't very much money. I think most people, and not everybody would need to put a tenner in, right? So if somebody's got a bit more, but no companies, and there would have to be a cap, right? The most anybody's allowed to invest is like £50. And you can buy in for £1. You can be part of it for £1, and it's just like relational, right? And it doesn't matter how many pounds you put in, you get one vote, right? So there's loads of ways that you can enable everybody to get in on it without somebody having a majority, right? Nobody's allowed more than one vote, right? Nobody's allowed more than one share, but your share, you might have invested in like £50, so you get like a higher, you get like £9 back, and the person who puts £1 in gets like 40p back, right? So it's relative what you're getting out of it to how much you put in, which I think is fair. But it's not to say you can't then decide, what if everybody paid like a £10 a year membership? Like that's 100 million every single year going into, if it's just 10 million, going into UK Energy for us to do whatever the fuck we wanted to do with it. Like what other company, like they have to like go and get investors, like they have to, that's where BlackRock and Vanguard come in, right? They need to get capital. Like we could just like put out an email and be like, hey, we want to it's going to cost us, I don't know, like 300K to investigate this as a free energy source. Give us a quid. Right? Because there's loads of you, it's not like loads of money, but it's you have to be a shareholder, and then you get like patent rights, right? So it's I just think we forget how powerful we are. And with technology, like everybody can, it would be easy to do like your votes, right? You just do you have a poll, and everybody gets an email. You don't have to pay for, I mean, you people are paying quite a lot in your fucking in your email server, but that'd be costed in there, right? But you just everybody gets a vote, and it's like I think that's, and it can like for all the farmers, right? You don't need um an outside company. You just need to freaking band together and pool your resources. Like you don't need to like be in like nobody needs to be isolated anymore. Like that's what technology's done for us. And it's made it easy. And if you think out of 10 million people, like you're bound to get somebody who's like a lawyer. You're bound to get somebody who is a freaking accountant. You're bound to get those types of people who may want to you could have your very own accounts department from the people who are doing it, right? Who got their £10 in. How could we promote that? I don't know. I literally had this idea at 6:30 today. So, and then I kind of saw the kind of the money that had come out of it. I don't know whether we could get that many people to invest to not, but I think the disruption to the industry, it would be enough. You could promote it on social media, but there's quite a lot of work you'd have to kind of figure out first in the background, I think. Like it literally was just a conversation I had with Grok at 6:30 to find out whether it's viable. Absolutely is. Like I asked him to cost it all. But yeah, so like, he's like, "Oh yeah, to buy an oil rig it's like 10 million." He's like, "But you got 200 million." I'm just like, this is just insane numbers. I'm like, so I would not be like in charge of the money in any way, shape, or form. Somebody else needs to take control of the money. I don't know. How much is that again? Which means how much? But yeah, I think it's doable. Okay, but so let's put this into perspective, right? So if you think political parties, so if you think about the Labour Party, the new fake Labour Party, whatever that's called, they had 20,000 members in the space of like 2 days, all paying like 3 or 4. I think it was like 5 quid. What were they paying? Like it's very easy to get. That's a lot of money. Like that's a lot of money. It's like 100 grand. Like in 2 days they raised 100 grand. And people are just going to vote, right? What are they going to do with that? They'll buy. I mean, I don't even know what they're going to do with that 100 grand. I mean, they'll use it for candidates and stuff like that. So it's not going to go very far. They will be needing in outside investments. But yeah, I don't. So it's quite. I mean, once it's not an idea and it's more of a kind of actual legit concept, wouldn't be difficult to promote it. Oh, you just use social media and but and like a crowdfunding, an FCA regulated crowdfunding platform would be the safest way to do it, because then you're not the one handling money, and it's all kind of done through their lawyers. And but then you have to be careful, because if you don't raise the money, then you don't get it. But yeah, like I don't know, like somewhere like Kickstarter or something, but again, like I've never owned an oil company or an energy company, so I don't know. I don't know. But yeah, so it's because you would then be able, like, you would have like a fighting fund to overturn like the net zero laws, right? And you would have, because you would have stakes, you would be, what's the word? Yeah, you would have a legitimate claim in a court. And if you had like 10 million people who've all signed up for this, is you would be able to prove that there's a large percentage of the population who just don't consent to this net zero shit. Because you'd be like, I got 10 million people who say that they don't consent to it. So, like, how you've got 10 million people automatically signing a class action, right, against the government. But yeah, so, but this is, yeah, it's crazy, isn't it? So, but I was inspired by Trump's UN speech, because I just assumed that all the oil was already like portioned. Like that, I think that's what I just assumed, it was already portioned and they just weren't drilling. I hadn't realized that we hadn't found it. I was like, oh, wait, there's oil that we could just go get? Like, seriously? And there are coal mines that we could reopen. I mean, it'd be different nowadays, wouldn't it, to back in the day when they were going down the pit, as they say, down the mines. But it'd be safer, less likely to die. I mean, if we were energy independent as a country, but you like instant access to 10 million people who all believe the same thing as you, that this country is fucking going to the dogs. Yeah, we do. But like I say, I literally only just thought about it at like at 6:30. So and then I had to, oh yeah, this was really weird, right? So I was on watching C-SPAN, and as he was then talking about, oh, he kind of got 46 minutes in. What I heard, like every time he was talking, what came through the recording was like a foreign person translating what Trump was saying into whatever language they were speaking. So I had to then go find it on something. So that was just weird. That like the last 15 minutes on C-SPAN, it wasn't Trump speaking. It was cross-wired with a translation. That was just weird. Okay, so we kind of did two little deepy dives and food for thought about what we could do, because I keep saying it's important that we don't just focus on the things that we don't want. We focus on how we can actively force change and just circumvent the whole help people understand that we are in control, whether we can by consent, right? So we consent or we don't consent, and we do something to change it. Um, so where are we? Okay, so the feel good section. So we've done the whole madness. We're going to jump onto the mayhem, and we are going to talk about productivity guilt. So first up, do you ever feel like you're never doing enough, even when you're exhausted? That nagging voice whispering you should be working even on your days off. And if you're constantly battling that feeling of not being productive enough, we're going to dive into productivity guilt and how it might be silently stealing your peace. Okay, so and this is 100% me. 100% me. So I had yesterday off. I worked myself exhausted last week, doing like 8 days worth of work in 6 so that I could have yesterday off and see my friend who I hadn't seen in 2 years for her birthday. And I was still working in the morning, and then when I got back, I was working again till I think I was working until midnight, right? And then when I'm not working, I'm just watching my Telegram thing go, like 300 missed notifications. Like if I came towards channel, 900 missed posts, right? Because I just have not had the time to catch up with that stuff. So this is where it's hard, right? You're trying to earn the money that you need to feed your family. You're trying to spend time with your family because, they're your family. And then at the same time, you're also trying to make sure that we're not all going to get murdered by some crazy psychopathic, sociopathic, and sadistic elites. And when you take a day off, you feel guilty because while you were enjoying a really not huge. Okay, so I say enjoying. I was enjoying the company. I had steak and ale pie, and the pastry was shit. But it's because I make really good pie pastry, and I don't have pie very often because I don't eat carbs very often because they make me poorly. So it's really disappointing, and it was. You get that like shop bought gravy pie. It was the pie tasted like it was an Aldi steak and ale pie. With some green the mashed potato was nice. The green beans. I had, like, 1 broccoli stem thing and, like, 6 green beans. But, the lemon tart afterwards was super tasty. But the company was great, right? But so then because my other plan was it was supposed to be me and Matt going so I could work, right? This is so I could work on the way there and on the way back. And instead, one of our dogs decided that it was gonna get diarrhea and just shit all over the place. So I came down in the morning to, like, shit everywhere, which meant Matt had to stay behind. And because Matt stayed behind, I had to drive by myself, and I don't like driving. I was really annoyed that I was gonna have to drive. I don't like it. And actually, the where I drove to is about 10 miles closer than where I used to work. So it's like I used to drive 2 hours, like an hour and a half there, an hour and a half back every single day for work. So it's not like I'm adverse to driving. It's not like I can't drive. I just choose not to. So, but then I lost another 3 hours in driving. And I say 3 hours because what actually happened was I started to drive and then my car, like all the lights and came on, and then I pressed the brakes and there was no brakes. And so then I had to very carefully turn around and get my car back home. And then I started the journey again. So it actually took me like 4 hours to get there, and then like an hour and a half, 2 hours to get back. And I was only there 4 hours. So for me, I was like, that's a lot of time that I didn't spend doing the things that I should have been doing. And again, that's probably why, I was multitasking, doing folding the clothes while listening to Trump, while talking, like voice noting to get Grok to organize my random thought so that I would be able to have a conversation with you. So again, I feel guilty for never being as prepped as I'd like to be for these shows. I genuinely love to be in the same position as I was in 2020. Well, okay, caveat. In the same position as I was in 2020 to do the research, to have the time, have the energy to really look into all this stuff. But then, my business was shut down, right? So I had no money coming in. So I had time, right? So I do quite like not having to worry about not being able to afford food or, lose the house. Like that's, so it's always swings and roundabouts. And so it makes you feel, it makes you feel guilty. It's made worse, right? Because we don't need to feel guilty about doing the things that make us feel good. It's really bad to feel guilty about doing the things that make you feel good, because you're actually more productive when you feel good. But also, like, nobody's superhuman. You deserve, I have to tell myself as well, like you deserve and I deserve to enjoy life, right? And what I do is I will tell myself, like, because we're now 5 years, we're talking about the same thing for 5 years. So like, if I take a day off, the world's not going to end, because it would have ended already if it was going to, right? It does make me more stressed when I'm trying to catch up, but it kind of swings and roundabouts, I guess. And like AI is making it easier, right? So productivity guilt stems from our current genuine obsession with proving our worth in the things that we're achieving, right? So you have people gloating about how much they achieve, right? And you see this on social media. So if you think about the trad wives, and you see them, supposedly getting up at 5 a.m. in the morning, and they are making everything from scratch, and then they're making the clothes that the child's wearing today, and then they're cleaning the entire house top to bottom 3 times, and then they're there with them. And so for somebody who hasn't got the opportunity to be at home with their children, maybe they're working because they need to feed the child, you have guilt that you're less of a mum. And I mean, the trad wife thing, I mean, it's all bullshit and all product placement anyway, and really dangerous. Like, and that weird one who talks really weirdly, like, I just, there's nothing wrong with being a stay-at-home mum. There's nothing wrong with being a mum who goes out to work. There's nothing wrong with not being a mum. You can be a trad wife and be an evil bitch. You can be like a working mum and be an evil bitch, or a working husband, whoever you are, right? So if you are a nice person, it doesn't matter whether you work or whether you're at home with your kids all the time, right? As long as you're looking after them and you're spending quality time with them, it's fine. And just because you're busy all the time Are you doing things that are beneficial, that are leading towards your ultimate goal? So last week we were talking about delayed gratification. Like, what is it you want to achieve? And you only need to do one little thing each day in order to achieve that thing, right? So if you're feeling productivity guilt, you probably haven't sat down and worked out what all the ins and outs are of the thing you want to achieve. You probably don't know the timings of how long things are going to take you. Like, I know it takes me about 4 hours of collating information before I'm kind of more ready for a show. But that's 4 hours before the show, as well as like the hours in the background trying to see what's going on in the world, what things maybe people aren't talking about, what things are important, what things the government's just randomly fucking done. So I probably spend 6 or 7 hours a week before and I know it doesn't look like I'm prepped enough for that. I probably spend 6 or 7 hours doing this. It's important. I enjoy it. But so that's a day. It's like an entire day, working day. So it's a working day into a show. And thankfully now, Restream just kind of like AIs and pulls stuff out for me. So I now save like 4 hours on the back end doing all the kind of extra stuff, and Muse does the transcript, and like, so I like AI helps me. In 2020, when I was doing these shows, it used to take me 2.5, 3 days, like solid, straight, to do everything. It was, and then sometimes if I was doing one of those special shows, it would be like a week and a half, 2 weeks worth of investigation. And I think because I've got lots of background knowledge now, I don't necessarily need to do quite so much investigation, but it's not short, right? But I know the benefit is huge. And so that's where the guilt comes from, right? So could I be more beneficial? Could I help people more? And then you have to step back and be like, yeah, but what's the whole phrase? You can't pour from an empty cup, right? If you are doing everything for everybody else, one, they're not doing it themselves, and then you create a codependent relationship, and I am not in on codependent relationships in any way, shape, or form. Like, that's just unhealthy. But also, that then leads you to feeling more guilty. So work out what it is that you want to do, take the small steps to get there, and then make sure you put you at the top of your to-do list, because otherwise you will work yourself into the ground and then you'll be no good to anyone at all. So we've got some research here as well, because I do love a bit of research. So a 2021 study in the Journal of Occupational Health Psychology found 68% of UK workers feel guilty for not working outside of their regular hours. And this then increased their stress and burnout. So neuroscientifically, it ties to dopamine-driven reward loops, where constant task checking provides fleeting highs but no lasting satisfaction. And that's what we were talking about last week with regards to delayed gratification. Otherwise, dopamine's only in your system for like 5 minutes. So you have to do lots of stuff to keep feeling good. So quality-focused productivity, which emphasizes meaningful tasks, helps reduce stress and enhances prefrontal cortex functioning for better decision making. So rather than kind of looking at all the things you have to do, and I showed you my like random list of stuff last week, think about the one thing you could do that day that is going to have the most beneficial outcome to the goal you're trying to achieve. Right. So that may include, right, and so this is what I did for lunch, is I sat with one of the dogs, because our dogs can't all be together, because they'll try and kill each other. I sat with one of the dogs and I turned off everything and I ignored everything. and I watched a bit of shit TV, right? And it was important that I did that, and I know it's important that I did that because I went from doing, like, therapy-based work until what time did I have lunch? 2, half 2. And then when I finished, I knew that I was gonna be doing this sort of stuff, right? And so I needed the break in between, and I do watch, like, shit TV. Actually, I'm watching Harry Wild. I'm quite enjoying it. I pay for Acorn TV now. I don't know. So you may find that is important, right? So that didn't help me achieve on the surface. That didn't help me achieve any goals. And could I feel guilty that maybe that was 40 minutes? I could have spent doing other research. Well, no, because my brain would have been exhausted. So you have to know your own limits and, like, enjoy life, right? And I know this is quite a morbid way to think about it, but I could literally, like, step outside and get, like, run over, and then I'll be like, "Oh, well, she worked and she died," right? At least you want your headstone to say she worked and she had fun, she did some cool stuff, but she had a life. Absolutely, having fun makes you more productive in the long run. It also enables you to stay healthy, right? So if you have fun, your immune system's working, you're pumping serotonin. Like, if you are stressed out, you are killing yourself slowly. You're literally killing yourself slowly. So you've got to do the things that make you feel good, but also recognize that, like, things do take time to achieve. And as long as you're moving, you haven't failed yet. So here's what we can do. Number 1, understand that you are doing the best you can in a very difficult situation. At no other time in history, so at no other time in history has there been so much time pressure on people. What I mean by that is people having to work multiple jobs just to feed themselves. And at the same time, you're acutely aware of the fact that you're trying to stop the world being mass murdered. And your input does matter, like, 'cause everybody's input matters. Because that's the power of social media. It's one person will share a post and somebody else will see it and somebody else will know something and we understand stuff. Like, so everybody's input matters. I mean, some people will collate information and share it on like in different formats. So I'm just sharing it in a different format. Like, I didn't create all of these bits of information. Like, these bits of information was shared, came across, and then I kind of dug where my brain went. But other people contributed to this conversation that we're having. We absolutely do need to laugh more, and I think that's one of the reasons why I watch shit TV, is because when it stops my brain, like, hurting, because there's no way I could function if it was just, like, turned on all the time. But you do, like, I watch 'cause I trained Instagram to just give me and, like, it's definitely not politically correct humor, but it fucking makes me laugh. So I will go onto Instagram multiple times a day, not for extended periods, but just for, like, maybe 5-10 minutes and just, like, giggle. And you would not believe what that does for your capacity to actually solve the problems that you are having. And again, be more productive, achieve more, do more. So I mentioned the Pomodoro technique before, like, it's fucking awesome. Like, if you do it properly, you will achieve more. So those 5-minute breaks, like, use those 5-minute breaks to, I wouldn't say, you can meditate. Meditating, you need to kind of meditate for like 20 minutes, really, if you want to increase your decision-making capacity. And if you've got trauma, like unresolved trauma, then I highly recommend you do not meditate, because that's just, like, dangerous. Instead, use those 5 minutes to laugh, to do gratitude journaling, to do some HIIT, right? That will do loads. That will get your tryptamine pumped out, and that's what you need. And then just train. Like I said this before, like if you are I don't know, Facebook's doesn't work the same. So either Instagram or TikTok, right? If you've got an account already, that's fine. Go and create another one. And just go and look at funny things, and don't do anything else with it. Like literally train it to find funny stuff for you. You have to do a bit of searching in the beginning. But then when you like something and you're like liking the posts, the AI will find you more of the same, right? So I don't need to search at all. And with the fact that you get reels now, is you will just get like one after the other, after the other, after the other, right? So set a timer, have a 5-minute giggle fest, and then go back to what you were doing. I used to watch like the comedy stuff, Comedy Central is just shit, and comedians, they're all just they are just shit. Actually, comedians on Instagram aren't necessarily shit, but the ones on the TV are, right? So they're all corporate funded, unfunny people pushing a message, politically motivated. But yeah, so find real people doing stuff that's funny. Yeah, do one thing, right? What one thing could you do? So, and if you're thinking, okay, well, I could do one thing that's going to improve my mental health. So I can do 5 minutes of laughing, right? I do one thing that's going to improve my relationship with my partner, my kids, my something or other. And I'm going to do one thing that improves my career, what I'm doing to earn money. And then I'm going to do one thing that moves the needle with regards to the pressure from the cabal, right? So that's just 4. I can't count. That's 4 things, right? You only need to achieve 4 things a day to be successful. And it doesn't have to be like 4 giant things. So what could we do? So you could do like an FOI request, take you like 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes. You could make your partner a cup of tea or a cup of coffee, turn your phone off and have like a 5-minute conversation with them. You could fold the clothes that you told them you were going to do 3 days ago. So I did today, improve my relationship by actually folding the clothes and putting them away. I do the inside house stuff and he does the garden stuff. So we have a division of responsibilities. But to be fair, Matt's really good. If I'm really, really busy, he will pick up the slack. Though sometimes it stresses me out because I'm like, oh my God, that's not how I fold the clothes. So he doesn't touch the clothes because I fold them like very. They did the what's that woman? The Art of Tidying, whatever that woman was. And so like it's all stood up properly and I can't. I'm like, no, you can't. I just think I'm gonna have to refold that. So that's my job. I don't want everyone thinking like I don't do all the stuff at home is what I'm trying to suggest. What else are we talking about? Improve my career. Oh, I did one thing today to improve my career stuff. I created a in the process of creating a searchable database of my happiness hacks videos so that my clients, because there's like there's over 40 videos in there now, and I know that they're like, because they keep saying, well, you said this in one of the videos, like which one was that? And I'm like, I don't fucking remember. I say a lot of stuff. I don't know. So now they can just be like journaling, and then it says it's mentioned here. Go watch whichever one you want to watch. So that's beneficial because that will free up me time and make things easier for them. What did I do for me? Oh yeah, I watched Harry Wilde at lunch. That was good. So just like, so normally, like when I'm working with people to kind of deal with their mental health, I'm like, there's three life areas, there are three core life areas, right? So there's your health, and that's physical or mental. There's your relationships, that's a relationship with you and relationship with others. And then there's your kind of like wealth area. So that is, if you're a stay-at-home mom, that includes, are you looking after are you division of labor? Are you looking after the home? Does that make it and or a stay-at-home dad? Are you keeping the home nice and clean and putting the food on the table, doing the shopping, so that the person who's out to work comes home, and then you can have a good relationship, right? So, so whether you're going out to work or whether you're supporting the person who's going out to work, you're still responsible for the financial success of the household. But if you kind of know that there's the cabal, you kind of got this like save the world kind of bubble. So you only do one thing in all of those bubbles to go to bed feeling successful. And when you go to bed feeling successful, you will then no longer have the productivity guilt, because you will start to accept and understand that you can't do everything right now. Social media and instant access to everything has really fucked up with the way that we process information and time and stuff, because now we expect everything to be done instantly, and it can't be. We can't do it instantly. We're humans. And even Grok took 10 minutes to just unjumble my words, right? So even an AI can't do stuff instantly. And it doesn't have to be long, but you have to start understanding what you need to do, what you're going to choose. So when you get up, and the best time to decide what you're going to do is not first thing in the morning. So you don't want to wake up in the morning and then be like, what am I going to do today? You want to decide what you're doing tomorrow, the night before, the day before, right? So if you decide, right, okay, well, I'm going to have my working hours like between 9 and 8 p.m. And I mean, like in that hour time frame, you're going to do all of your 4 things, right? So by 8 o'clock, I'm going to have like all of my stuff done. And I highly recommend you give yourself 2 hours before you go to bed, because if you haven't, you've still got time to do it, right? So you don't want to say, right, before I go to bed, I'm going to, because then you'll be like, oh my God, I'm still up till 12 o'clock. And you can always change your mind, by the way. It's not like you're going to set this in stone. So you kind of look at what you've achieved today. Okay, so what's the one thing I can do in each of these areas that's going to move the needle in such a way that I'm going to feel good about where things are heading. And then when you get up in the morning, and I mean, if you can, like brownie points, if you're like scheduling it in when you're going to do it for the next day, when you get up in the morning, you can just take action. So what happens is people will try and plan their day in the morning, and that is really inefficient, because you will spend lots of time like trying to figure out like, well, where did I get up to yesterday? And it's not the way to do it. It's not the way to do it. If you want to be really productive, figure out what you're doing like before you finish your working day, and then schedule it in. Be like, okay, well, I think this, and if you don't know how long it's going to take you, then you have to do like some guesstimation, and then eventually you'll figure it out. Right? So plan in, like, I'm going to spend 5 minutes on Instagram watching funny videos at 12 o'clock, because at 12 o'clock is when I have my cup of tea. Like, I mean, I've already had a cup of tea by then, just saying. Using just as an example. So while the kettle's boiling, and then, I put the water on, and then the tea bag's brewing, I'm going to do some funny stuff. And then I'm actually going to enjoy my lunch. And then I'm going to go back to work, and I'm going to do X, Y, Z, and I'm going to do this thing. And I'm going to spend half an hour doing the vacuuming or the mopping or whatever it is you're going to do to improve. But when you start looking at all the things you're doing in your life, rather than this is a task I've got to do, i.e., let's do like steam mops the floor, right? Because I did that earlier. I hate doing that. I really don't enjoy cleaning. Just like, Really don't. This is why, like, my desk is a mess every time you see it. A different mess, right? I clean it up and then I just make more mess. But I really don't enjoy cleaning. But I had to steam up the floor. So what did I do? Did I just steam up the floor, or did I improve the aesthetic of the home because there's no longer dirty dog fucking I say no longer dirty dog feet. When I go down, there will be more dirty dog feet because that's what happens when you have dogs. You will clean the floor and then there's dirty dog feet. But am I improving the relationship with Matt because he's no longer coming in the house being like, dirty dog feet? He doesn't do that, but he doesn't. But that's how you can start to think about what you're doing, right? Am I just cleaning the dishes, or am I ensuring that when I want to get a cup of tea, I've got clean mugs? Is that improve? Am I actually improving my relationship with myself so that when I next want a cup of tea, I don't have the resistance, or I'm not thinking, oh my God, like you've got to go fight for a mug somewhere, right? So change everything you're doing into how you're improving like one of those 4 life areas, and you will stop feel guilty about not doing stuff. This is the fastest way to stop productivity guilt. When you start redefining the things that you're doing in the ways that align with where you want to go, rather than being like, all this stuff is draining my time and my energy, and these are the things that I need to do and I'm not doing them. So yesterday when I was driving, I told you I spent like hours and hours and hours driving. Matt's car. My car was broke, so I was in Matt's car, so I couldn't listen to anything. I mean, I could put I don't listen to music in cars. So I normally have like Audible, and I will be learning stuff because it's a great opportunity to learn stuff. But his car's really loud, so I couldn't hear anything because my phone doesn't sync with his. Anyway, so instead of just being in a mood and in the silence, I spent hours yesterday saying affirmations while I was driving. I did huge amounts of prefrontal cortex rewiring yesterday while driving. That was I massive impact on my relationship with myself. So I did yesterday while driving. So you just need to redefine the things that you're doing, and you will go to sleep every night successful. Like it's perception. But I do still feel guilty. So I need to do it as well, right? It's like I'm human. I'm not a robot. I forget. But this is what I'm going to work on this week. And so that's why I thought I'd incorporate it into what we're doing today. So whatever you do though, make sure you're celebrating your success before you go to bed. Like, pat yourself on the back. You shouldn't need somebody else to kind of like validate what you're doing or celebrate for you. You should be able to kind of like feel pride in the fact that you did the things that you said you were going to do. Like, you're awesome. Like, you need to start believing you're awesome. So I think that's quite a nice place to end, the fact that you're awesome. So thank you so much for joining me this week. Oh, let me just drop this what do they know link. So if you are going to do an FOI request, there you go. So this is quite, like I said, if you kind of missed it before, this is a good place to go because you can search to see if somebody's already submitted it. And you can see, and maybe you can do a different one, maybe come at it from a different angle, or maybe theirs was rejected. And just so you know, sometimes when they reject it, they will kind of tell you like things, and petition wise, they will tell you things like, we can't, what did I get? I had in a petition into the WHO. This is back in 2021, I think it was 2021, and they couldn't allow it because there was an active criminal investigation. And I was like, oh, well, that's an interesting thing to tell me. So sometimes their responses, some of the civil servants, like they're good, like they're useful. But make sure you kind of go onto what do they know, register. It's free. They've got templates. It's really easy to do it. And we've all got different interests, right? So if we just keep hounding them, they have to start doing their jobs. It is a democracy. They rule by consent. They may not remember that. It's our job to hold them to account. So have an amazing rest of your week. I shall see you next week. Lots and lots of love, and I'll see you soon. Bye for now.